Right, so I put in the headliner for the hardtop, and you can see here the difference is that I just mocked everything up. So they did a pretty good job and everything lined up. They didn't weld this piece, but they put in screws there. And the problem is I'm having, you can see there's clearance issues. It doesn't clear at that point where it screws in the rear part of this section. So I have to trim a little bit. It's just that the profile is slightly different. And then it sticks out really far where it would mount with the plastic clips. It doesn't even meet up, so I have to cut it a good 6-7 inches. I just did the headliner, and the most difficult part was this section where the sun visors seat because of all the creases. I wasn't able to get it perfect, but I did as best as I could, and the rest of this material is going to be for the sun visors, so I'll just fold it over, overlap it on each end, and then cut out the other side for the holes. So not too bad. This stuff's pretty good, high strength. It has a little adjustment for how much spray you want to go on. Spray it on both sides in the material and the headliner housing, and it sticks real well after about, gets tacky after about like 30 seconds, 30-40 seconds, and then that's when you start to roll it over. Putting these in here, I don't know what you would call these, weather stripping, but it's not lining up here on a couple of little spots. You can see how far off the hole is. Well, if I seat it all the way in, there's like 3 or 4 of them that are not lining up, and this is brand new. And via this attachment, you slide it into it this way, and it locks, so that way it's completely on there. Well, I finally got everything from Amazon for the sound system. I've kept it pretty basic as could be. I'm not doing a sub. NVX sound dampening kits for the doors, so 1 for each speaker, 2 sheets, 10 by 10 inches. This is the smallest amplifier I could find. 400 watts RMS, 4-channel. You can see just how small it is by anything smaller would be like a 2-channel by NVX. But since I'm running 1 channel for each speaker, our speaker wire, 8-gauge power and ground wires here. It comes with fittings, and then the RCA cables to run from the head unit to the amplifier itself. Vega, separate crossover, 2-way component. It's 300 watt max power, but that's not the actual number. Everything together was, I think, 420 bucks. Rockford Fosgate, coaxial design, 3-way. You see the 45 watts RMS. That's per channel, or per speaker, in other words. I think these are 45 watts, and I believe these are more than likely 60 or 70 for the Vegas. A 60 times 2, 120, plus another 90 would be, yeah, like 210, or anywhere from 210 to 240. And this is capable of handling 400 watts RMS. Here, ideal for systems up to 600 watts RMS. I'm not even running anything close to that. But like I said, they didn't have any kits. They were cheaper with a 10-gauge wire for 4-channel. And then lastly, the actual head unit. So this is digital media style JVC KD350 BTS. The only thing it doesn't have is the CD player. So this is the way I'm going to pass the wires through. Obviously it's going to be down and under and straight through. I mean, I don't really need that much venting. It is a small amplifier, but I think it should be suffice enough. The windows were finally installed. They came here, and all of this cost little kind of a lot of money-ish, $500. So it definitely wasn't cheap. Bit of the rosin core on the tip of the soldering iron, and then you apply that straight onto what you need to solder, which is this one right here. You heat this up and then you apply your solder. You don't really need that much. That's it. Barouche. Solid little pool. Make sure they're good. Crossover. What you have to do is connect here the tweeter, connect here, well this is called woofer, but the speaker, and then you'll connect power straight from the amplifier in. This way this powers it up and gives adequate power to the tweeter and the speaker. And I have the speakers mounted to the OEM brackets now. This is what it looks like. These are the screws that were originally here on the outer portion of it, so it's pretty solid. Not going anywhere. And then the rear ones were a little bit more difficult. There was 4 holes and I tried to line them up. You know, there's a whole bunch of different mounting points. I had to cut it open there, and there, and that one didn't line up, so I just screwed it in here. And I put an extra screw here on this side, so it's holding up just good. And then yeah, so now I just have to install it on the car. I finally cut out the template for the sun visors. This is the original one, just real flimsy, and I made it cardboard, and so I made them out of Lexan. You'll need 12 by 12, just real thin stuff. So obviously this is where it sits inside the sun visor. And lastly, I couldn't find any of these brake line grommets unless you actually order them from Toyota. They'll give them with the brake lines. So whatever, that's that. Just install them, put some FIPG on there, just give them a little bit more strength so they don't start to tear. For reference, this is the moisture barrier here. I took out the original one, it was already beat up. This one wasn't too bad, but the other side was real bad, so I had to redo it. So I figured might as well buy some new material that I got from Home Depot. It was like $3.50, $4 for a 9x12 sheet, 2 mil thick, but I had to double up because it was a little bit thinner if I just used one sheet. And you can see I cleaned the outside portion here where I attached the tape. That way I had a good mating surface, because attaching 2 pieces together was a little bit difficult, and there was some flab. And stuff's a little bit hard to work with. The way I got rid of the old stuff was with some gasoline. I tried the denatured alcohol at first, but it didn't really work. The only reason I used denatured alcohol was just on the outside portion, so when I put the tape on, it sticks and adheres just nicely. I used denatured alcohol for the back portion of these sound dampening proofing material for the speakers. But as you can see, the bead here was a little bit thicker from factory, but I think this should hold up just fine. Strip cock 08578, and the first layer should have you cover both doors just fine. The interior is coming along. I was doing the rear trunk bar, originally made by C1 but marketed as Beat Rush now. It's in the carpet there and there, but the one thing is I originally thought since I bought this used that it would install straight like this down, but you can see here on the welds that they're angled a little differently. They're not perfectly horizontal with the mounting points. So at first I thought I went directly like this, but it started to angle way too far forward. And this portion of the chassis here, you see there's 2 holes. And in the pictures online, when they sell it brand new, they show it mounting to this point here, to the furthest of the center of the car. And since this is at a slight slope like this, kind of exaggerated, but at a slight slope like this, you want to counter that. It sits completely parallel to the ground when it's installed on the car, and the slope is towards the rear end. So that's how it's supposed to go, if you can see that. When I originally bought the car, this was on there just like this, a white RPM. So this is actually, this whole setup here, which is currently came off my car, is SS3 gauge cluster, and it had the white face gauge on it, which looks kind of awkward. So what I did was I swapped over a 3SGE1 from the regular ST202 because I couldn't find one of these, which is an ST204 SXR gauge cluster, which came on the Celica in Australia only. This actually took me 6 years and 11 months to find this, but I finally found it for 50 bucks. So I'm going to be swapping over the kilometer onto there, swapping over this one for the temp and gas, and then slapping this guy on here or on here and swapping that onto there. That way I have all white gauge cluster. And then with these are for the turn signals, so they come like a little green plate. So I'm gonna just cut out some blue from a binder divider and just put that on there. That way it gives a different effect. I know this look here is actually from a TRD ST206 current. They have it where it's just 7K, the 180 kilometer, and then obviously the rest is black. There's a total of 4 ground points that I'm aware of inside the engine bay. There's this one for the engine itself. I cleaned it up real nice. Then there's another one here for the right wiring loom. Another one on this side for the left wiring loom. And then this cable is actually for the transmission. So you'll want to clean it up just enough so that it contacts just nicely like that. And I cleaned off both ends as well as every other end. I used a 150 grit sandpaper and then cleaned it up with some fuel. That way I have a good contact. And then what I'll finish it off with, dielectric grease. That way you don't have any corrosion from the elements, obviously it being outside. So I bought some Speed Source shift based bushings for 33 bucks. And I was taking a look at the TRD ones, and you can see the difference here. This is the TRD and this is the Speed Source. This comes in 2, so you sandwich it between the bottom of the chassis and the top. And here's a Speed Source, and then here's a TRD one. But you can see how the TRD sits slightly higher. I don't know why or what design would be better. Some company that I'm talking to is interested in replicating the TRD kit. Enough people interested on the forum or Facebook, wherever maybe that I post it. Pricing wouldn't be too bad. And what I hear is a lot of people like the way the TRD shifter kit feels. So it'd be kind of cool. The grease that I use for the rear sway bar polyurethane bushings, I cleaned everything up with gas, and so that everything would stick to it. You don't need too much of it, but what I've noticed when I used to daily the car was that I would have to use this every like 5,000 miles, give or take, and if not, it would start to make that creaking noise going up driveways and over bumps and whatnot. So I plan on actually powder coating the rear sway bar. It's getting a little rusty. I've had it for over 9 years because I swapped it over from the other car. And this is the version 2, which they don't longer make from Suspension Technique. But this one came in green, and then they made another batch which came in gray. And of course, it's a discontinued product. But I just plan on getting it painted black.